Today, I want to talk to you about a simple but powerful truth. You can't rise while you're chained to negativity, whether it's self-doubt, toxic people, fear, or past failures. Negativity has a way of dragging us down, dimming our potential, and blinding us to the opportunities ahead. But here's the good news. Negativity is not permanent. It's not a life sentence. It's a fog that you have the power to clear. Removing negativity isn't about pretending bad things don't exist. It's about choosing not to let them control your life. Imagine your mind as a garden. If you don't pull out the weeds, the doubts, the toxic thoughts, the criticisms, they'll take over. But if you remove them, even one at a time, you make space for growth, clarity, and confidence. Rise above the noise. Choose thoughts that lift you. Surround yourself with people who see your worth. Believe that your best days are still ahead because they are. Let go of what holds you back. Stand tall in your strength. And rise not in fear, not in bitterness, but in power, peace, and purpose. Negativity is like carrying a heavy backpack that you never put down. At first, you might not even notice the weight. Maybe it's just a passing thought, a minor doubt, or a negative comment from someone. But over time, that backpack gets heavier. Every self-critical thought, every fear you entertain, and every grudge you hold adds another brick to it. Eventually, it becomes hard to move forward because you're so burdened by everything you're carrying. This is why understanding the weight of negativity is the first step toward freeing yourself from it. One of the most deceptive things about negativity is that it can feel familiar, even comfortable. You get used to thinking, "I'm not good enough," or "I'll never succeed." These thoughts may become part of your identity, even if they harm you. But just because something feels familiar doesn't mean it's right. Just because a thought repeats often doesn't make it true. Negativity convinces you that it's keeping you safe from failure, embarrassment, or disappointment. In reality, it's keeping you small. Negativity can show up in many forms: self-doubt, jealousy, anger, resentment, pessimism. Sometimes it's not even your own, it's the voice of someone else that you've internalized. Maybe someone told you that you couldn't succeed, and now you hear their voice every time you try to do something brave. Carrying around other people's doubts and judgments only adds to your weight. You weren't born with this negativity, it was handed to you, but you have the right to set it down. Letting go of negativity doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect or ignoring real problems. It means refusing to let negative thoughts and emotions become your default setting. It's about noticing those thoughts when they appear, questioning them, and choosing something healthier. You can't always control what shows up in your mind, but you can control what you focus on. You can choose to redirect your energy toward thoughts that serve your growth, not your fear. There's also the emotional weight we carry when we don't forgive either others or ourselves. Holding on to past mistakes, regrets, and betrayals keeps us locked in place. Forgiveness isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's about deciding that you're not going to carry that pain with you any longer. It's choosing to rise instead of relive. When you forgive, you lighten your emotional load and make space for peace and progress. Negativity affects your body as much as your mind. Chronic stress, anxiety, and pessimism take a toll on your health. You may feel tired all the time, even when you've done nothing physically exhausting. That's because carrying negativity is exhausting. It drains your motivation and clouds your judgment. Letting go isn't just a mental or emotional shift, it's a physical release. When you shed negativity, your energy returns. Your posture changes, you breathe deeper, you literally feel lighter. Releasing negativity also means being honest about the sources of it. Sometimes it's internal, but often it comes from external environments, relationships, jobs, or social media. If you're constantly surrounded by criticism, drama, or comparison, it's going to affect you. choosing to let go of negativity might mean stepping away from certain people or places. It's not about blame, it's about protecting your peace. You owe it to yourself to create an environment where you can grow, not shrink. Ultimately, the more negativity you release, the more room you create for joy, focus, and success. You can't rise if you're weighed down. Imagine trying to climb a mountain with bags of stones on your back, stones you don't need. You don't have to carry them. You can set them down. The higher you want to go in life, the more important it becomes to travel light. Let go of what doesn't serve you, and you'll find that rising becomes not only possible, but natural. Removing negativity is not something you do once and forget about. It's not like taking out the trash and assuming the room will stay clean forever. Just as dirt accumulates in a house, negativity builds up in our minds over time. It comes from experiences, disappointments, conversations, setbacks, and even our own inner dialogue. That's why removing negativity must be a daily, conscious choice, something you commit to again and again. Many people wait for a perfect moment to feel positive, for circumstances to change, for others to treat them better, or for life to become easier. But that moment may never come unless you choose it. Negativity will always try to sneak back in, especially when you're tired, stressed, or vulnerable. You have to be vigilant. You have to recognize when it returns and decide once again to push it out. It's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent in your decision to protect your peace. Negativity thrives in silence and avoidance. The more you ignore it, the more power it gains. Choosing to remove it means facing it. You have to name it when it shows up. That's fear, that's insecurity, that's bitterness. Once you acknowledge what it is, you can start to challenge it. This is an active process. It takes self-awareness, emotional maturity, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truth. But the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Sometimes we convince ourselves that we have no control over the negativity we feel. We say things like, "I can't help it, that's just how I am," or "that's how life is." But these are just excuses that keep us stuck. No one is born pessimistic. Negativity is learned, and what is learned can be unlearned. Making the choice to remove it is empowering because it reminds you that you are not a victim of your thoughts. You are their master. You decide what stays and what goes. One of the reasons people struggle to remove negativity is because it's deeply tied to habit. If you've spent years thinking in negative patterns, those neural pathways in your brain are strong. Reversing them takes time and repetition. It means choosing to replace negative thoughts with positive or neutral ones again and again, sometimes 100 times a day. But with enough time and intention, the mind starts to shift. What once felt impossible becomes instinct. This process of continually removing negativity can be uncomfortable. It might mean changing your language, setting firmer boundaries, stepping away from gossip, or even limiting exposure to certain media or relationships. These decisions aren't always easy, but they're necessary. Every choice you make either feeds negativity or weakens it. You're building new patterns every day. Each small decision adds up to a larger transformation. And here's the paradox. The more negativity you release, the more sensitive you become to it. That's a good thing. You start to notice when your mood shifts, when a conversation drains you, or when your thoughts turn toxic. This awareness allows you to respond quickly instead of letting negativity take root. You stop tolerating things that once seemed normal. Your standards rise. You begin to protect your mental space the way you would protect your home, with care and intention. Think of it like maintaining your health. You don't eat one healthy meal and expect lifelong wellness. You don't go to the gym once and expect to stay fit forever. You show up repeatedly, even when it's hard. The same applies to your mindset. Removing negativity is a lifestyle, not a one-time fix. You wake up every day and choose how you want to think, how you want to feel, and what kind of energy you're going to carry. And that choice made over and over is what allows you to rise. Your environment is more powerful than you may realize. It shapes your habits, your mindset, your energy, and even your sense of possibility. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, whether it's pessimistic people, toxic relationships, stressful spaces, or discouraging influences, it becomes incredibly difficult to stay positive, no matter how strong your intentions are. That's why one of the most important steps in rising above negativity is creating an environment that nourishes growth, not fear. Think about how a plant grows. You can have the most beautiful, resilient seed in the world, but if you plant it in toxic soil, it won't thrive. It will struggle to survive. The same goes for you. You might have all the potential in the world, talent, drive, passion, but if your environment is filled with negativity, criticism, drama, or doubt, your potential gets stifled. You're not weak for being affected by your environment. You're human, and humans are influenced by what surrounds them every single day. People are one of the most powerful forces in your environment. Who you spend time with matters. If you're constantly around people who complain, gossip, criticize, or drain your energy, it chips away at your motivation. On the other hand, when you're around people who inspire you, support your goals, challenge you in healthy ways, and believe in you even when you doubt yourself, it lifts you. It empowers you to think bigger, dream louder, and show up as your best self. Positivity is contagious, but so is negativity. Choose wisely. It's not just people, it's also the spaces you live and work in. Is your environment cluttered or calm? Is your space full of noise and chaos, or does it give you room to think clearly? Even small changes like decluttering your home, adding natural light, listening to uplifting music, or displaying words of encouragement can shift your mental state. Your physical environment should reflect the mindset you want to have. Create spaces that feel safe, energized, and purposeful. Digital environments also play a huge role in your mental and emotional well-being. The content you consume online, social media, news, videos, podcasts becomes part of your mental diet. If you're constantly absorbing fear, outrage, comparison, and judgment, it's going to affect how you feel and how you think. Curate your digital environment the same way you'd curate your home. Unfollow accounts that drain you. Follow those that uplift and educate you. Be intentional about what you allow into your mind. Sometimes we're afraid to change our environment because it means stepping away from comfort and even from people we care about. It's not easy to distance yourself from friends or family members who are negative, but sometimes it's necessary to protect your peace. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you don't love them. It means you love yourself enough to prioritize your well-being. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. You have to choose growth over guilt. The most transformative environments are the ones that reflect your values, support your vision, and stretch your limits in the best ways. That could mean joining a supportive community, finding a mentor, starting a new job, or simply spending more time in places that inspire you like nature, libraries, creative spaces, or spiritual communities. The right environment reminds you of who you are and who you're becoming. It gives you room to evolve. Ultimately, if you want to rise, you have to pay close attention to what surrounds you. Negativity is sneaky. It seeps into your thoughts through your surroundings. But positivity can be just as powerful when you invite it in. You are not obligated to stay in spaces that make you shrink. You deserve to be in environments that encourage your light to shine. Surround yourself with people, energy, and influences that help you expand, because your environment is either fueling your rise or feeding your resistance. Self-awareness is the foundation of all personal growth. Without it, we can't change what we don't recognize. When it comes to removing toxic thoughts, the journey doesn't start with fixing them, it starts with noticing them. Self-awareness is like turning on a light in a dark room. The clutter was always there, but until the light is on, you can't clean it up. Becoming aware of your inner dialogue allows you to step out of autopilot and begin the intentional process of healing your mind. Most people walk through life reacting to their thoughts without ever questioning them. A toxic thought enters, "I'm not good enough. Nothing ever works out for me. I'll never change." And instead of examining it, they accept it as truth. Self-awareness interrupts this cycle. It creates space between you and your thoughts. You begin to understand that having a thought doesn't mean it's true, and believing a thought doesn't mean you have to keep believing it. This mental separation is where transformation begins. To develop self-awareness, you must learn to observe your mind without judgment. That means watching your thoughts like a witness, not as a critic. If you beat yourself up for having toxic thoughts, you only reinforce the negativity. But if you can say, "Interesting, I notice I'm thinking something unkind about myself right now," you disarm the thought. You take away its power by seeing it for what it is, a mental habit, not an identity. Awareness opens the door to choice. One powerful way to build self-awareness is through reflection. That might mean journaling your thoughts at the end of each day, asking yourself where certain emotions are coming from, or identifying patterns that keep showing up in your behavior. Toxic thoughts rarely arrive out of nowhere. They're often rooted in old wounds, limiting beliefs, or learned behaviors. The more you reflect, the more you understand the origins of your thoughts, and the easier it becomes to shift them. Mindfulness also plays a key role in developing awareness. When you practice being present, you begin to catch your thoughts in real time. Instead of spiraling into negative thinking for hours or days, you start to notice the moment a toxic thought appears. Maybe you catch yourself comparing your life to someone else's online. Maybe you feel your chest tighten when you think about a failure. Mindfulness helps you pause, take a breath, and respond consciously instead of reacting unconsciously. Self-awareness also reveals how often your thoughts are shaped by fear rather than truth. Fear is a master of disguise. It dresses up as logic, caution, or realism, but it's often just self-protection disguised as wisdom. When you become more aware, you start asking critical questions. Is this thought rooted in fear or in fact? Is it helping me grow or keeping me small? Toxic thoughts often crumble under honest examination, but you have to be brave enough to look closely. The more self-aware you become, the easier it is to identify the triggers behind your negative thinking. Maybe it's certain people, environments, times of day, or emotional states that spark toxic spirals. Once you recognize your triggers, you can plan for them, protect your energy, or choose new responses. Self-awareness gives you control where you once felt powerless. It puts you back in the driver's seat of your mind instead of being a passenger to your emotions. Ultimately, removing toxic thoughts isn't just about replacing them, it's about understanding them. Every thought has a root, and self-awareness helps you trace that root to its source. It teaches you to become curious about your own mind rather than afraid of it. This curiosity is what empowers growth. When you know yourself truly, deeply, you can begin to untangle the mess of old beliefs, patterns, and assumptions that no longer serve you, and from that place of awareness, healing becomes possible. Failure is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. From an early age, we're taught that failure is something to avoid, a sign that we're not good enough, smart enough, or capable enough. But in truth, failure is not the opposite of success. It is a part of success. Every person who has ever achieved something meaningful has failed not once, but often many times. The difference is that they didn't let failure stop them. They used it as a stepping stone, not a dead end. When you fear failure, you avoid risks. You hesitate to try new things, to speak up, to stretch beyond your comfort zone, and in doing so, you limit your growth. Fear of failure creates paralysis, a false sense of safety that actually keeps you stuck. But what's worse than failing is never trying, because when you don't try, you rob yourself of the lessons, the strength, and the resilience that come from struggle. Growth doesn't happen in ease, it happens in discomfort. Every failure carries a message, a lesson, a truth, but you have to be willing to look at it closely. You have to ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? What can I learn about myself? Maybe failure reveals a gap in your skills that you can now strengthen. Maybe it exposes a limiting belief you didn't realize you were carrying. Maybe it humbles you just enough to ask for help. If you approach failure with curiosity instead of shame, it becomes one of your greatest teachers. The fear of failure often stems from how we define it. Society tends to equate failure with lack of worth, as if making a mistake means you are a mistake. But that's simply not true. Failure is an event, not a label. It's something that happened, not something that defines you. Just because a plan didn't work doesn't mean you don't work. Your value isn't based on your performance. It's based on your willingness to keep showing up, learning, and evolving. Many of the most successful people in the world failed publicly and repeatedly before reaching their breakthroughs. Authors who were rejected dozens of times. Entrepreneurs whose first businesses collapsed. Athletes who lost again and again before they ever won. What separates them is not luck or talent alone, it's mindset. They didn't let failure become final. Instead, they chose to see it as feedback. They adapted, adjusted, and pressed on. If they can do it, so can you. Using failure as fuel means reframing the experience. Instead of saying, I failed, so I'm not capable, say, this failure is preparing me to be more capable. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Ask, how can this grow me? It's not about toxic positivity, it's about resilient thinking. It's about choosing to rise even when it hurts, even when it's hard. Failure is painful, yes, but it is also powerful. It strips away illusions and brings you face with your potential. Sometimes the greatest growth happens after your worst moments. Failure has a way of sharpening your focus. It humbles you, yes, but it also wakes you up. It pushes you to work harder, to think differently, to get creative. It forces you to rebuild, and when you rebuild, you become stronger than before. Like a broken bone that heals thicker at the fracture, your character becomes more resilient in the places where you've fallen and risen again. Ultimately, if you want to rise, you have to stop seeing failure as something to run from and start seeing it as something to learn from. Every failure is a piece of the puzzle, a part of the process. It's not a sign to quit, it's a signal to grow. Don't let the fear of falling keep you grounded. Use every misstep as momentum. Use every setback as fuel. Let your failures shape you, not shame you, because they are the foundation of your future strength. Gratitude is one of the most powerful emotional tools we have, yet it's often overlooked. When negativity creeps in, whether through stress, disappointment, or pain, gratitude has the unique ability to shift our perspective almost instantly. It doesn't deny the presence of struggle, but it reminds us that even in the midst of difficulty, there are still things going right. Gratitude doesn't erase problems, but it balances the weight of hardship with the recognition of goodness. The human mind naturally scans for threats and problems, a survival mechanism rooted in evolution. While this helped our ancestors stay alive, in today's world it often means we focus on what's missing, wrong, or broken. This tendency feeds negativity. Gratitude, on the other hand, rewires that instinct. It trains the brain to look for what's working, what's meaningful, and what's beautiful. Over time, it creates a mental habit of focusing on abundance rather than lack. What makes gratitude so powerful is its simplicity. You don't need wealth, perfect circumstances, or grand success to feel grateful. You can start with the smallest details: a warm cup of tea, the sound of laughter, a kind word, or a breath of fresh air. When you train your mind to notice these simple gifts, you begin to build resilience against negativity. Gratitude becomes a daily anchor, a way to stay grounded, centered, and emotionally steady no matter what chaos surrounds you. Practicing gratitude isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's not a denial of pain. It's an intentional shift in focus. It means acknowledging the difficulties while also making space for appreciation. You can be grieving and still be grateful. You can feel lost and still recognize the people who are standing by your side. Gratitude expands your emotional bandwidth. It allows you to hold both joy and sorrow at the same time, and that is what makes it so healing. One of the most transformative aspects of gratitude is how it changes your relationship with the present moment. Negativity often thrives in the past regret, resentment, or the future anxiety, fear. Gratitude brings you back to the now. It anchors you in what is, rather than what was or what might be. When you're truly present, appreciating something right in front of you, negativity begins to lose its grip. You begin to realize that peace doesn't live in perfect circumstances, it lives in presence. Gratitude also reshapes how you see others. When you're focused on what you lack, it's easy to become resentful, jealous, or critical. But when you're focused on what you appreciate both in yourself and in others, your relationships deepen. You start noticing the goodness in people. You become more generous with your words, more forgiving in your heart. Gratitude fosters compassion, empathy, and connection. It dissolves the barriers negativity often builds. Developing a gratitude practice can take many forms. Some people write daily gratitude journals. Others speak their thanks aloud in prayer, meditation, or morning rituals. Even taking a few seconds each day to reflect on what you're thankful for can make a significant impact. Over time, this practice retrains your inner dialogue. The voice that once defaulted to complaints begins to lean toward appreciation. You start seeing life not as something that owes you, but as something that continues to give. Ultimately, gratitude is a quiet but fierce form of resistance. In a world that constantly tells you you're not enough, don't have enough, and aren't doing enough, gratitude says, you have more than you realize. You are already standing on blessings. It softens the sharp edges of life. It replaces bitterness with perspective, envy with contentment, fear with trust. Gratitude doesn't just make life feel better, it makes you better at life. It is not merely an emotion. It's a practice, a mindset, and a way of living that dissolves negativity from the inside out. Action is the bridge between intention and transformation. You can dream, plan, reflect, and visualize, but without action, nothing changes. The most profound ideas in the world are powerless without execution. Taking action is how you turn a desire for growth into actual growth. It is how you rise from negativity. You don't have to have it all figured out, you just have to take the first step. Movement, however small, creates momentum. and momentum is what turns effort into progress. Many people wait for the perfect moment to act the moment when they feel confident, prepared, or certain. But that moment rarely comes. Growth doesn't wait for you to feel ready. In fact, readiness often follows action, not the other way around. You gain confidence by doing, not by waiting. You gain clarity by trying, not by thinking. The first steps may feel awkward, messy, or even frightening, but they are the most important. Forward motion, not perfection, is the goal. Taking action doesn't mean giant leaps every day. Sometimes it means taking one small but meaningful step. It might mean setting a boundary, reaching out for help, saying no to something that drains you, or saying yes to something that scares you. It could mean waking up a little earlier to journal, taking a walk instead of spiraling in thought, or starting a conversation you've been avoiding. Small actions repeated consistently lead to massive shifts over time. Negativity often thrives in stagnation. When you feel stuck, hopeless, or overwhelmed, the mind loops in circles. The longer you sit in inaction, the louder the inner critic becomes. But movement breaks the cycle. Even when your mind says, "What's the point?" action proves there is one. It sends a message to your entire being: I am not giving up. I am still trying. I am still in this fight. That choice alone begins to silence the doubt, the fear, and the heaviness. One of the most empowering realizations is that you don't need motivation to take action. Motivation is fleeting. Some days it shows up, most days it doesn't. What you need is discipline, and more importantly, courage. Courage to take the first step. Courage to keep going when the results don't come quickly. Courage to fail, to learn, and to try again. Growth is not a smooth, linear path. It's full of setbacks and detours, but the only way through it is to keep moving. Action also brings healing. When you're actively doing something for your well-being mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually, you feel a sense of agency. You begin to trust yourself more. That trust builds self-esteem, and that self-esteem makes it easier to continue growing. It becomes a positive cycle. With each act of self-care, each brave decision, each honest effort, you begin to believe, maybe I can do this. Maybe I am stronger than I thought. It's important to remember that action doesn't mean forcing or rushing. It means being intentional and persistent. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You don't need to fix everything at once. You just need to commit to showing up to doing the work, even when it's uncomfortable, to making choices that align with the life you want, not the life you're trying to move away from. Consistent action is what transforms patterns into progress and struggle into strength. In the end, growth begins when you move forward, not when life gets easier, not when things are perfect, not when you feel fully ready, but when you decide that staying stuck is no longer an option. Action is how you reclaim your power. It's how you rise again and again. Every step you take toward your healing, your peace, and your purpose is a quiet rebellion against the negativity that once held you back. Movement is life, and your life begins to change the moment you start walking forward. In this journey of life, negativity will always try to find its way in. It may come through doubts, failures, comparisons, or fears. But you are not powerless against it. You now carry the tools awareness, resilience, gratitude, courage, and action. You've learned that removing negativity doesn't mean denying pain or pretending everything is fine. It means confronting it, learning from it, and choosing to rise above it every single day. Your thoughts are not your destiny, they are your starting point. What you choose to focus on becomes your reality. And when you begin to focus on growth instead of limitation, on gratitude instead of lack, on progress instead of perfection, you begin to shift your entire world. So I ask you now, are you ready to rise? Are you ready to take back your mind, your power, your purpose? Because the world doesn't need more people consumed by fear and self-doubt. It needs more people who are alive fully, courageously, and unapologetically alive. Remove the weight that holds you back. Drop the beliefs that no longer serve you. Stand tall in your truth. Take the first step even if it's shaky. Keep going even when it's slow. And always remember, rising is not about being perfect. It's about being persistent. Negativity may knock, but it doesn't get to stay. You get to decide what you carry. You get to choose the thoughts you empower. And when you do, when you choose healing, when you choose gratitude, when you choose action, you will rise. Not once, not temporarily, but again and again, stronger every time. Remove negativity. Rise into who you were always meant to be.